I've been with Bon Appetit since they arrived at Denison in 2013, and I pretty much get to know every student that comes through our doors, and I love it.
Paul, how about you?
Hi everybody, my name is Paul Taylor. I'm the general manager for Bon Appetit, or Denison Dining at Denison University. I oversee the food service, and along with a couple of hundred other staff members, and we're the ones who feed everybody.
Very important jobs, for sure. Fatima, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Fatima. I'm a senior at Denison. I'm double majoring in international studies and French, and I'm from right outside the Cleveland, Ohio area. Quite involved on campus in terms of things that I do. I work as a community advisor, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a bit. I work for the Office of Admissions, and then I'm also involved in student government, a couple of cross-cultural organizations, and then our First Generation Network.
Christian?
Hi everyone, I'm Christian Franco. I am also a senior here at Denison. I'm majoring in communication and anthropology sociology. I'm from Chicago, Illinois. And some of the things I've done in the past, I've just been involved in different C3 organizations and been really committed to residential communities, this being my third year. So very excited to be here.
And Christian, would you mind, just for the sake of everyone who might not know, what does C3 stand for?
So you just caught me, because I've always classified it as C3. I think Fatima can help me with that.
Yeah. So C3 are cross-cultural communities. So they are kind of like the opposite of different like cultural or religious organizations that you can be a part of. So I know Christian has been a part of La Fuerza Latina, which is our Latinx organization on campus. I'm involved in our Middle Eastern student organization. So lots of really cool C3 ones you can get involved in.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, I know sometimes we get so used to using our jargon, we forget not everyone knows what those mean. So I appreciate that. And Fatima is going to dip out a little early. She has an academic commitment a little bit later on. So she's going to leave around 7. So I want to jump in first by letting our students talk about, what the experience at Denison is like. Just so we're all on the same page, Denison is a fully residential campus, so that means that students live in some kind of campus housing all 4 years, and I think close to 100% of our students at this point are living on campus. We do have a few that might live with their parents in the nearby area, but the majority of our students are living in some kind of campus housing, so we'll definitely talk about what that looks like a little bit later. But I do want our students to talk about, what that means, what the importance of it is, and kind of how you've built your community here on campus over the past few years. So, Christian, why don't you go first?
Yeah, I think that one of the most important things about being a residential campus is that you really feel like a home here. I think you run into the same people, in the same area, like what quad you live in. Like I've had the experience of like every single time I'm heading to class or just going out for a walk, like I have to say hi to somebody because I just bump into someone that I've known. So it's a really wonderful experience, and I think that it is also very interesting to be a community advisor within a residential community, because a lot of that does fall on you. But it's a really good and fun experience for sure.
So at Denison, we always talk about residential communities because that's what we are. We are a community. So you'll hear all the time that the community runs deep in Denison. That's Dr. Weinberg's tagline. That's what we all use all the time. And we shape that within our residence halls as well. So they do end up being a sense of home on campus. Christian mentioned that he's a community advisor going on year 3, so am I, year 3 gang. And what community advisors do is we oversee residence halls. So you guys might be used to the term resident assistant or residential advisor. At Denison, we call them the community advisors because we focus on like a lot of really good programming activities for students, a lot of different fun events. So whether they're like movie nights, or if you want, like I know there are different community advisors who do like marathons, cooking nights, we'll bring in food. Obviously, due to COVID, things look a little bit different, but in any normal year, and still now we're doing a lot of fun things virtually, we just foster a good sense of community, like Christian said. You get to know people on your floor and in your entire building. It's been a really neat experience I think you get a very unique experience living on a residential campus because not only are you going to class with your friends, you're living with your friends, which is really cool, and you get to build such amazing relationships across your residence hall and then all the different residence halls that you live in. So I'm sure we'll go into logistics in terms of like what kind of fun, well-rounded experience with all the different fun stuff that's going on inside residence halls. All the fun stuff happens inside residence halls, not outside residence halls.
Maybe not as much this year, right? I think there's a lot more going on outside with COVID. So Doug, can you tell me, in Fatima or Fatima just brought this up, like in terms of the logistics of the residence halls, if students are thinking about living on campus all 4 years, what does that typically look like? I know it's not just like a dorm the whole time, right? Like a 2-person dorm.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Thank you so much. So we say that like your residential experience like grows as you grow on campus. And so you start out in what we would consider a traditional style residence hall. So it's a big hallway. There are individual rooms that line the halls, and then in the middles and sometimes on the ends, you'll find the shared common bathrooms. The rooms in those areas have anywhere from single to maybe 4-person occupancy, depending on the room, and then there are common spaces on the floor that people can gather, and that would be considered like a traditional first-year experience. All of our first-year students live in traditional style housing. Then from there, depending on what you're looking for, your sophomore year, you have the option again to live in a traditional style residence hall, and many of our students do because they really enjoyed that experience that they had in their first year. And then you also have the opportunity to live in a suite. And suites are a lot more popular in your junior year. And that's what most people would consider like the signature junior year experience would be to live in a suite with all of your friends. And the way a suite works is it is, again, a multiple occupancy room, but now you have a bathroom attached. And so you would typically, with somewhere around 2 to 3 more friends, up to some of our rooms hold up to 7 people if you have a pretty large friend group. And that way you get that private space with the bathroom with your friends. And then your senior year, again, students would consider it like the signature senior experience that they look forward to. All 3 years leading up to it would be a senior apartment. And the senior apartments are arguably, some of them are nicer than what you would find off campus at a lot of places. They were nicer than one of them's nicer. Our new build, Silverstein Hall, is nicer than my first apartment, so I'm a little bit jealous. But they have a living room space, a full kitchen with like stove, microwave, sink, oven, all of those sort of things, and then individual single bedrooms with 2 bathrooms shared by the 4 residents of the room. And so our seniors really look forward to that experience. Some of our seniors will choose to go meal plan optional their senior year because they do have that kitchen. But I always say that food tastes better when someone else makes it for you and you don't have to clean up after yourself. So some of our students will choose to keep that meal plan for their full senior year.
Mm-hmm. So Christian and Fatima, I'm interested. Doug just kind of laid out like what the 4 years look like. Did you guys find that structure was kind of how you went through, or like what have your 4 years looked like in terms of the different buildings you've lived in? Have you guys had all of those options so far?
So in terms of the way that it's gone for me, so like I said, it's my 3rd year going. Being a community, my experience is a little bit different than most. But my first year I had a traditional double, so I just lived with my roommate. And we went through, it's like people call it a random, but it's not really random. It's a selection process where you fill out a super detailed survey and they match you up with someone who has a very similar living style to you. Sometimes people choose to pick roommates ahead of time, but I chose to not do that. A lot of students don't because most people don't know someone else going to Denison. They did a really good job. I still keep in contact with my roommate. So we were a really good fit. We were both like early birds, night owl. It just worked out great in terms of like scheduling and cleanliness and all that good stuff. So put your faith in Denison gods and here for you. But after that, I became a CA, so I lived in Crawford, which is one of our largest residential halls on campus, and I worked with people in my year, which was really neat. So I oversaw that hall, but most of the people in that residence hall also live in a traditional double style, so with just one other person, and it was all sophomores and like a handful of juniors that lived there. And then my junior year, I was actually abroad for half the year, so I was in a single as a CA in one building, North Quad, and then my senior year, I do have an apartment. Thank you, Doug. He is the one who placed me here, so kudos to Doug. And I am actually in a two-person apartment, so I just live with one other person, but the vast majority of them are four-person apartments, and I went meal plan optional because I wanted to cook my own food because I have my own kitchen. But yeah, so I followed like a similar trajectory, just a little bit different because I didn't have roommates for 2 years being a CA, but most of the time you will have a roommate. However, we have a couple of singles available for you if you choose to not have one. That's how my track went down.
I should note also, I think Doug would probably agree, it is completely not random, right? There's a lot of thought that goes into it. I lived with my Denison roommate all 4 years. We lived together in a double our freshman and sophomore year, and then junior year I lived in a suite with her, and senior year we lived in a house together when there were still houses available. So definitely you guys do very good work with residential communities and student housing and stuff. So yeah, so Christian, what has that looked like for you, that trajectory?
Yeah, I've actually had a almost identical track as Fatima. I was in Kappa Sig, which she was a CA for her third year. It was small housing. I had a roommate that I also had a great time with. We spent a lot of time together. I actually met my current roommate through him, which is really fun and interesting that kind of worked out. But also, like Fatima, my second year I became a CA in Crawford. We were actually placed in the same building. I also had a single. It was very nice to have, your own space sometimes, but, at times it does get a little bit lonely. But it worked out because the following year I was actually put in a suite, and I shared it with one other person. We both had our own bathroom, so it was really neat to have that suite experience. And then going into my senior year, I actually was placed in Silverstein, so the second I walked into this apartment, it smelled fresh, it smelled new. It was really, really nice. But yeah, I opted out of the meal plan because, we have our own kitchen and stuff. But yeah, it's been very interesting and fun going through the different housing styles at Denison. I think that they all have, good parts to it, and it just all depends on what kind of person you are.
I think every alum out there from Denison is super jealous about you living in Silverstein, Christian. I haven't been inside the new building yet, and it just looks gorgeous, so I can't wait to go inside and see it. Does it live up to what it was promised to be so far?
Oh, for sure. It feels like a hotel. I don't even have to use a key anymore. I just scan in and my room.
Hey, yeah, that's pretty nice. And Christian, you had mentioned Kappa Sig, so I think that would be a good point for us to talk about too, as well, is the fraternity houses on campus. So Denison is fully residential. Almost all of our students live on campus, but something that sets us a little bit apart from other schools is that our Greek organizations don't actually live in their houses. So we do have sorority houses in Granville that our sororities use for meetings and events. And then the fraternity houses are actually on campus, but the fraternity members don't live in them either. They use them for those events, but then we do have other students living in them. Some of them are special interest housing, some of them are senior apartments. Doug, what are some of the special interest options for students that are in those fraternity houses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say we have a few special interest options on campus. The would actually be the homestead, which is a little bit off of campus, which is a very unique experience. It has been growing in numbers recently. And then we also have a special interest option for students that are going abroad to sort of live as a cohort before and after their abroad experience, so that that way they can share those experiences with the individuals that they went abroad with, sort of come back into the Denison environment as a cohort and really have those shared lived experiences. So I would say those are our two most common special interest house options.
Yeah, is that study abroad cohort new or newer? Because I don't think that was there when I was a student?
No, it was not actually. It's something that we are going to, so there was sort of a plan to start it up this year, but study abroad hasn't happened quite yet this fall. So the plan is to kick it off next year to support those students that are going abroad and coming back from abroad.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a great option. I lived in a suite my junior year before I went abroad, and it was great. I mean, a lot of us, we kind of made our own cohort because most of my suite mates also were going abroad, but then, you know, it was kind of like a transitional thing where you were leaving, but then you were coming back and you weren't really sure. That sounds like a really great idea. Yeah,
we also have two other sort of unique housing options. They're more considered, I guess, designations, but we have drug, alcohol, and tobacco-free housing for our students that just want like completely what some people would call substance-free living. And then we also have quiet housing for students that are looking for a little bit more of a quiet residential experience, so that way they can all live together with those same expectations.
And that brings up an interesting point, too, in terms of like preferences for students. How does Denison handle gender identity on campus and like placing students starting even in the freshman year who might be, you know, of a different gender identity than you know, what their physical sex is, or students that are transitioning, or students that might be allies? Like, how does that work for students?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our for our incoming first-year students, they complete what we call our housing preferencing form, and everything on there, they list preferences of community types, people that they want to live with, those sort of things. Some of our halls on campus might have maybe like a reputation for a certain type of living, but we actually ask our first-year students to designate the community, not the building, because the people in the building are what actually make the community. The building itself is just brick and mortar. It's the people that make it. And so students are able to request specific community types, such as like traditional living, drug, alcohol, tobacco-free, quiet, those sort of things. And then there are also some questions in there about individuals asking, like, if you are interested in like LGBTQ+, like gender-inclusive housing. And so students are able to indicate like how important that is to them if they're interested in it. Students are, when they identify their gender identity, they're also able to identify the gender identity of another individual that they would like to live with. So like I could say that like I am like a cis man and I would also like to live with a cis man or a trans man or something like that. So you can be really specific in the identity of the individuals that you would want to live with. And many of our students that are interested in gender inclusive housing will live together in a common area. And we actually just got some really amazing feedback from an alum recently saying that they have a child that is living in that gender inclusive housing right now, and how supported and amazing it feels for them to be surrounded in a community of people that share their feelings about that. So
Great.
it's a program that's actually only been around maybe like 3 or 4 years, but it's been really successful and our students enjoy it a lot.
And do you have a sense if that's different from what other schools like Denison are doing, or does that seem to be pretty similar? People are kind of picking up on that. What is that like?
Yeah, I would say for a small liberal arts school of our size, the Denison, I would say, is on the forefront of that process with the flexibility that we give our students. There are many institutions that say like gender inclusive housing, and then they just kind of like randomly match people. They don't really care that much, like, or they some of them only offer it for upperclassmen students. They don't offer it to their incoming first year students. And so for us to allow our students to like get all the way down to the nitty gritty of saying like, this is the specific gender identity of my roommate that I would feel most comfortable living with, really gives them ownership over their residential experience and the place that's going to be their home when they're on campus.
Yeah, super cool. And I think that's a really important point. I mean, this is your home. So to feel comfortable in your home and to have every person involved feel comfortable in their home is super important. So, so I know we're going to lose Fatima soon. I want to make sure and ask you guys before she has to dip out, why did you choose to be a CA? What prompted you to get involved in that?
That's a great question. So I chose to become a CA for a variety of reasons. So first one was I had a really great CA my freshman year. So my CA, she was just an amazing resource. I dealt with homesickness sickness a lot. I was having a tough time adjusting to Denison. I'm first gen, so I just did not really know my ropes around here, and there were just a lot of things that I was going through. So I remember, I think it was literally the first couple of days of classes where I just like knocked on her door at like 10 p.m. I was just like bawling my eyes out because I was like, I can't do this. This is too much. And she was always just so supportive. And she also had planned a lot of like really neat programs, and I didn't really know that that was like a part of her role necessarily until later on. She had like an ice cream social. She brought people in from like the career center and the off-campus study office to come talk to us. So I felt like there were a lot of opportunities that were thrown like at like towards me that I otherwise wouldn't have really explored, especially as like a more shy first year. And she was able to give me those kinds of opportunities. So I remember she actually in her newsletter was like, hey, if you guys want to apply to be a CA, you can do that. I was like, holy cow, this actually sounds really cool. So I talked to her about it, and she gave me like all the tips and everything. I went through the interview process and I applied. My aunt was an RA when she was in college, so she really loved that experience too, even though it's like her experience was different than the way that it works at Denison. And I got the job, which I was ecstatic about. And I was actually put on the same team as my CA. So Christian was on that team too, my sophomore year. And I love it. I love being able to help people in a variety of different ways. So in terms of what CAs do, we help students through whether it's something as like small as just like, well, not small, but something like roommate issues or homesickness to anything related to crisis. So if you are going through anything that is like really difficult, your CA is there to help. We're there to provide resources. So inform you of different events that are going on campus, tell you about the wellness center, off-campus study, just like basically serve as a good representative for all the resources the students may need, and just bringing that to the forefront in your communities, because otherwise a lot of people have to go seek them out themselves. So I really enjoyed that experience. I've mostly been with people in my class here, which has been really nice. So I've been working with people my age. I've been the CA for some of my friends before, which has been an interesting experience too. But yeah, this is my third year. I missed it a lot when I was abroad. And I'm really excited. I'm excited to do this for my last year here. So it's been a good time.
Yeah, so for me, two big reasons. I think that for as long as I can remember, a lot of people would come to me for advice, including like family members, and they were like, oh, you're a person that we feel like actually listens to us, someone that we can lean on, So I knew that I had that skill set within me, and then also similar to Fatima, like my first year I came here from a big city, Chicago, into Granville, a big transition. So I had a hard time adjusting, very, very homesick. And my CA was a fairly good CA. I think that they had a lot of good qualities in them, but I also saw a lot of areas of improvement. And like in some areas, I was like, I wish my CA could have done a little bit more here, and that would have helped me my first year, reflecting after my first year. So then the position opened, and I was like, you know what, I think that I want to give this a try. I want to be that person for the people to come, right? Like if somebody's struggling with a minute issue, if someone has a bigger issue, like I want to be that person that they can come to, and even if they feel like, they might not have anyone else, at least they can say, you know what, my CA is there for me, that my CA could point me in the right directions, could find me the appropriate resources. So yeah, I set out the task, I did the interview, it went really great. I mean, I've been here for 3 years, so I think that I've been doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And it's just been fun talking to people, meeting new people from different walks of life that I otherwise probably wouldn't have interacted with. So yeah, very, very good experience. And just at the end of the day, like I love being that helping hand.
Something you guys both touched on was transitioning and being homesick. And I know one of the biggest things as students transition from high school to college and they're homesick, and especially if you have a big jump like from Chicago to Granville, is the food. And so like one of the biggest questions that we always hear in the admission office is, what's the food like on campus? What is your honest opinion of the food at Denison?
So I really like the food at Denison. I grew up in a Polish and Egyptian household, so obviously my palate was a little different coming to Denison. That being said, though, I've been very happy with the experience here. Denison provides you with so many different options. I'm Muslim, so I have specific religious restrictions in terms of things that I can and cannot eat, and I've always had those options available to me. So they've always been really accommodating in that sense. And I think that one of the best things is that the food that you get is very fresh, and you have such a diverse amount of things that are offered. So it's not like you're going to be stuck with pizza and burgers and french fries every single day. If that's the diet you want, they have those options, but it's definitely not something that you have to stick with all the time, and it changes every single day. And the dining staff too, they add a whole other layer to the experience. Shameless plug, but I see Catherine all the time. She's amazing. She
Always has a smile.
Mom on campus, exactly. So they do a really good job. I've been very happy with it. Obviously, senior year, like Doug mentioned, it is a tough adjustment because now I have to add time to cook into my own schedule and everything. But I've been very happy with the experience, and most of my friends have been as well. And that being said, I have to dip, but it was really nice meeting you guys. I have to go to class now, but Christian will take it away. He'll give you probably way better answers.
Thank you, Fatima.
Yeah, so for me, I love the food as well. I remember my first year snapping pictures of every single meal, sending it to my mom. Look at this. This looks so good, and it's so good. Yeah, the options vary a lot, which is really nice because I think that every single time you step into the dining hall, you'll find something that is good for you or you're willing to eat and stuff like that. And I actually wanted to touch on the staff as well because the staff is amazing. I always look forward to just being greeted or being called honey, how are you doing? And, they're asking me about my day. And I actually remember, I think this was maybe 2 years ago, Catherine, one time, I walked in maybe 10 minutes before closing, before the day was going to close for dinner and stuff. And I was running late, so I rushed in there and the deli was closed and I was like, oh shoot, I really wanted the deli. And I was like, I'll settle with what's left. But then Catherine actually went around and she's like, no, I'm going to open it just for you. Tell me what you want. She prepared me my food and it was just very wholesome and it was very welcoming. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Even throughout the years, Denison's dining service staff has always been super friendly. So props to that. Paul or Catherine, does one of you want to give a kind of an overview of what dining services looks like at Denison and maybe the different types of offerings and the different buildings and things like that?
Sure. I'd love to. I will say one thing, and I was so glad to hear the two nice comments about the food service right away. So, one thing I always tell students when they first get here or when I meet them is we're never going to replace what your parents have been cooking you your whole lives. We can't do that. I mean, I don't care if our macaroni and cheese is the most gourmet macaroni and cheese in the world. It's not going to be the same one that you grew up on. And that's what food is. It's about culture, and it's about it's about memories, and it's about family. And I think that one thing we really try to do here is we try to have phenomenal service, and we mentioned just mentioned Catherine and all those first year students coming in. Catherine knows pretty much every one of their names, and it's just amazing.
They're my kids
and so
away
our
from
staff.
home. Yeah.
And it's really neat to see the relationships build, and that way we get to know the students, and we get to know what everybody enjoys eating, and we get to learn what their likes and dislikes are and steer them in the right direction. We do, we'll go out of our way to make sure that students get everything they want, whether it's a special dietary concern or whether it's just something that they might, we'll work with a lot of different student groups to learn, what kind of foods they like and what we can do in the cafes to make things better. But so we have 3 full service cafes here. We have Huffman, we have Curtis, and then we have Slater. So those cafes are open every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And the 2, Huffman and Curtis, are all-you-can-eat buffets. So you would come in, and there's 6 or 7 different stations that you can choose from. And like Christian was saying, you can you can have really simple hamburgers and hot dogs and pizza. Those kind of comfort foods are always available. And then we'll always have a station that does some kind of an authentic cultural cuisine. We'll always have a comfort station. We'll always have a salad bar. And so that's at Curtis and Huffman. Slater is more of a retail operation where you can come in and you can choose to go to the grill, or you can choose to go to the salad station, or you can choose to get food to go from our to go selections that are, just quick picks. We also have a late night option that opens at 8 p.m. every night, and it's open till 1 a.m. And that's, gourmet pizzas and wings and kind of that late night food that a lot of the students ask for. And we actually did that with the student group. We built the menus and we built the cafe just to give the students their favorite things that late at night. We have a smoothie station every day that's open down in the Mitchell Sports Complex. It's called Diffuse, and it's got 7 or 8 different smoothies or made-to-order smoothies for the students. And that's open every day from 4 to 8. And we also have a brand new cafe getting ready to open at Silverstein. And Christian, you'll love Silverstein even more soon. You'll have your own cafe at Silverstein on the ground floor and a C-store that will go along with it. So what it does, it gives us an opportunity to have another C-store in another part of the campus just to make it easier for the students to get everything they need. We do have a large C-store right in the middle of campus that is joined with Slater. And so that's what we have, throughout campus every day.
Sorry, I was on mute. To mute myself. Catherine, I know your name has been brought up a lot.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
What is your perspective on, every day you go in and you greet students, and what is your perspective on your role and how you, bring so much energy and positivity?
Well, the students and faculty and administration and staff are the reason that we want to come in every day. All of our workers, we're considered family. The Curtis crew, we get to know every one of the students and adore them, and we're the ones standing there when they graduate along with their parents, as we're working catering in the past, with tears in our eyes, because we're going to miss each and every one of them, because these are our kids that are home on the hill during their Denison experience. So it's just a pleasure and an honor to be able to do this every day.
Well, it really shows, and clearly the students notice it. So you're doing something right.
Thank you.
I know one of the questions that's on everyone's minds is, the COVID crisis and how schools are handling it, how everyone's handling it, and obviously Denison made the decision to reopen this fall and have students on campus this fall. So what has that looked like? What kinds of changes have you guys made to make sure that everyone's staying safe and well?
A lot of changes over the summer to get ready for the first semester. One thing that's really different is that both Curtis and Huffman are all-you-can-eat buffets, but you always ate in the cafe. Now, because we want people to be able to social distance and feel comfortable if they don't want to sit in a cafe full of people, they can take their food outside of the cafe, and they can either take it back to their dorm or they can take it to another social space on campus. The tables themselves, we have big plexiglass dividers on each table, which at first, it seems like it's going to be uncomfortable, but it's really not. It's just that's the one place that masks are off while you're eating. So what it does is it protects students from each other, but they can still sit together. Obviously, a lot of the cleaning, the surface cleaning is just really ramped up this year. Every 20 minutes, all high-touch surfaces are cleaned and disinfected by our staff. All of our food is served this year, where last year we had a lot of self-service stations like our salad bars, and really almost all our stations could be self-served. This year, everything is served. we're all behind, plexiglass barriers and everybody's 6 feet apart when they come into the cafes, and you have to queue up to the stations, very similar to when you're at the grocery store and you're going into the checkout line. You have to stand on the 6 foot sticker that, and so as you're getting up to each area, it takes the same amount of time as it did last year, but it does seem like it takes a little longer. But so far, it's just been a couple of weeks, and I think it's going really, really well. I think getting, all of our staffs in the back of the house getting used to wearing masks and things like that, it was a big change for everybody. But the staff understands the importance of safety, and so our primary purpose is to make sure that everybody stays well, stays full, but stays safe at the same time.
I have been noticing the mask wearing across campus. This summer when it was just the admission staff giving tours, there weren't a lot of people around, so sometimes it was kind of hard to tell, what was going on. But ever since school started, it seems like everyone is really on board and kind of has this shared purpose to be wearing the masks and to try. We all feel really grateful to be here, I think, when so many schools aren't. So I think everyone's trying to do their part, to keep everybody safe. Paul, can you talk a little bit about and I know Fatima mentioned this in terms of being from Muslim heritage, but can you talk about different dietary restrictions and what that looks like if a student has allergies? How do you kind of cater to that?
So, thank you. Yes. So we usually find out the students' allergies well ahead of time. Usually, during the summer, we'll meet with the student and their parents, or just the students. This summer, it was a lot of calls like this, virtual calls, to get to know the student, to find out exactly what their dietary restrictions are, and then to talk about how we're going to modify their meal plan to make sure that all of those needs are taken care of. We have some students that we know which cafe they're going to be going to based on their schedule and where they're going to live. So during the summer, when they first get here, we always introduce the students to all of the managers and all of the chefs. That way, when they come into the cafe, there's a familiar face. So somebody might come in and say hello to Catherine at Curtis, and Catherine knows that they have an allergy to seafood, and she will steer them in the right direction. If there's somebody that has a lot of different allergies, if one student does, sometimes we have menus set up in the back in the kitchens, and we prepare the meals specially for those students. Every meal that they come in, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks. So when they get there, they don't have to look around and wonder what they're going to eat. Their food is ready. Their menu's been pre-planned. It's been pre-prepared. It's been prepared right when they get there, finished right when they get there, but it's very comfortable to do it that way. We have some students that come in and they might not have acid. It may be a gluten allergy or an intolerance. And at that point, a lot of times the chef will walk with the student through the cafe, through each station. They'll talk about the food. They'll talk about the ingredients that are in the food. It really depends on the allergy and how we deal with each one, but it's really so the student even eats for the first time. And then the biggest thing that we talk about is the communication. The communication is the most important part of the particular issue. It's just making sure that there's a lot of, that it's very comfortable for the student to come in and talk to the managers and the chefs. And peanuts in our cafes. If we do have seafood in the cafes, it is really, really well spelled out. And even the servers behind the line, every time somebody comes up, they'll mention that, oh, there's seafood in this dish, or there's shrimp in this dish, or shellfish. Just really, really a heightened awareness on allergies. We know how very, very important it is. And so we take a lot of time making sure that we do not make mistakes when it comes to allergies. And it works really well this way for everybody. And we get, I talk to a lot of the students' parents, even students that have been here this year just for the last couple of weeks. There's a lot of follow-up conversations to make sure everything's going the way that it should. And that, that the students are happy and full. That's the most important thing to us. So.
Good, they're full. Mom and dad are happy if their kids are happy because they're full, right? And I think that's the benefit of a small school. I mean, having this type of community, I think we've used that word 100 times at this point, but that's just not something you're going to be able to do at a larger school on the type of individual level like what you see here at Denison. And I think that's really important to hammer home for anybody who is just starting to look at liberal arts colleges. Is like, this is what we do. We're a community. We look out for each other. So kind of just to switch gears a little bit back to the residential side, I just thought of something, because we keep using the word communities and we talk about how we foster community within the residence halls. And I know Denison has maybe a slightly different model than all schools where we have two separate prongs of the housing, not market, but like of housing at Denison, right? So Doug, could you explain the difference between the student housing and the residential communities and kind of how they work together?
Yes, so great question. We have two separate offices, student housing operations and planning and residential communities. We say that student housing, as we call it, are the heads in the beds. They are everything that has to do with like logistics, upkeep, maintenance, those sort of things. Denison is currently about halfway under a housing master plan, which involves a renovation of all of our residence halls, some touch-ups here, some paint there for some halls, and then some of them are getting like gutted, new floors, new lighting, all of those sort of things. So that is definitely an exciting thing, and that's one of the reasons why we have that separate office, is because they are enacting and executing that housing master plan. And then on the other end of things, we have residential communities, which we call the heart of the halls, and it has everything to do with your sense of belonging, feeling at home, and building a community at Denison. Our residential communities staff is the one that oversees the community advisors. So we have a team of 60 to 70, depending on the year and the communities and all of those sort of things, community advisors. And then we also have a team of 7 to 8 live-in full-time professional staff members that live in the residence halls with our students that are here. This is like their home on the hill, truly, for them. And they supervise the community advisors, and then you have a few of the individuals like me, the assistant directors, that oversee more of the like big picture things. So we have a bunch of staff on various different levels, and we are all dedicated to making sure that your experience on the hill is as good as it can be.
Great. Yeah, community. That's what it's all about, right? We've been saying it all night. Well, I definitely want to leave some time for questions, too. We've got a few questions that have been coming in, and so we'll just start going through these. The first one is not necessarily a question as much as I think it's a comment. Christian's fan club member over there wanted to know if the food tastes like grandma's. Catherine looks like she puts the special ingredient of love, and it sounds amazing.
That's so nice. And Christian, I was happy to do that for you that day at deli. Anything, I'll do that. I do that daily, for anyone that's comes through the door. You're not going to go away hungry, and that's why we're there.
We have someone who's asking about designated housing for athletes. We had a couple of people ask that question. So what does it look like for athletes on campus and how the housing works for them, Doug?
Yeah, that's a great question. So kind of going back to what I said before, that students have the opportunity to preference different things. One of those things is you're able to preference an individual that you live with. And so for individuals that are looking to live with another athlete, particularly in their sport, what we recommend is for you to find that individual and pair up with them. That way you know that that person's going to be a good fit and that you're both looking to live with another athlete. I have been at some other schools where they automatically pair up athletes, and then a few weeks into it, they realize, I'm going to class with this person, I'm going to practice with this person, and then I come home and I live with this person, and I have too much of this person in my life and I didn't sign up for this. And so we allow our athletes to mutually match with one another if they want to live with another athlete.
Fantastic. And somebody also asked if we could talk a little bit more about the homestead. I know you mentioned it earlier, and that is definitely a unique option. So what do students actually do at the homestead?
That's a great question. So it is actually off the hill a little bit. It's a little bit of a walk away, but our students out there are responsible for more of their residential experience. So they are a low electricity, low, what most people would consider like modern day amenity type community. They have some animals out there like chickens that they use the eggs from. And they have some land out there that they are responsible for maintaining. They have just a variety of things that they do out there. They cook pretty much all of their own meals out there. They're one of the people that can do a fully optional meal plan, and they cook all of their meals out there as a community. I had the pleasure of going out there one night, and they cook all of their meals over top of a wood burning stove. They have one light bulb up there to keep it lit. So it's definitely a different experience, but for our students that enjoy it, they truly love being out there on the homestead.
Quick fun fact about that. So in Chicago, and I met someone who had like graduated from Denison like probably over 10 years ago. Oh my God, is a homestead still a thing? So that person had such a good experience that 10 plus years later, they're still wondering.
I remember the homestead. I didn't live there, but I do know several people that did, and it's definitely a hit. I mean, because it is so unique to have something like that, and I think that's one of the things that makes Denison so special is that we have so much nature around us. We have so many resources. I mean, the campus is over 900 acres. So to be able to have that space to dedicate just to a sustainable living option is pretty cool. So, but speaking of amenities, this is a question we get all the time, and someone just asked about air conditioning in the dorms. So I know that's a little touchy.
So what we have found is that most of our students are okay without air conditioning, that there are a few students that for medical reasons, they require an air conditioning unit, and they've provided some sort of documentation from a medical provider, and they are able to bring, and then we install an air conditioning unit for them. But most of our students find that they don't need an air conditioning unit. We started earlier this semester, for those of you that were following along at home. We started earlier this semester, and just last week I heard a first-year student say that they were cold in their room last night that had no air conditioning, and I said, yep, I know it. Like, you don't need that air conditioning. As you kind of move on to those more older or senior options, in our suites and our apartments, most of those places will have built-in or central air that our students will enjoy.
I'm sure it's nice and chilly in Silverstein, Christian. You can confirm or deny.
I 100% confirm that.
So we are also getting a couple questions about like overall wellness too. And I know we haven't touched on that yet, Paul. How does dining services kind of tie into wellness? Do you do anything surrounding like overall?
Absolutely. So one thing that we're really proud of is we have really strong relationships and ties to local farms. We use 26 different farms and local vendors within 100 miles of Denison. So 30% of all of our food purchases are bought from small local farms. So right now, all the tomatoes, all the squashes, all the potatoes,
Eggplant.
all of our pork, all of our eggs, everything that we bring in is sourced from local farms, which in its own is much healthier. There's very strict guidelines with the farms when it comes to a lot of different things, but it'd be about as close to organic as you can get on most of our vegetables. We also work really closely with the Wellness Center here. We work with different student groups. For instance, right now we're working with the Wellness Center on a program that's going to teach students how to cook healthy food. And what it's going to be is it's a meal kit program where we'll have all the ingredients for a healthy dinner made up in a meal kit, and then we'll actually work with the students to teach them how to cook healthy once they leave Denison. And so that's a really neat program that we're working on right now. And then, Catherine, did you want to add anything to the nutrition?
We have monthly, oh, that's not my dog, Food for Your Well-Being programs that we just promote. Well, it'll be different now with the COVID, but different topics about staying hydrated and healthy fats and different types of options. So we do that monthly in the cafes as well.
Great. Yeah. I know dining services has definitely changed a lot since my time at Denison, definitely for the better. So all of this is really good information. We also are having some questions about international students specifically. And so I'd like to get both of your perspectives from Doug and from Paul and Catherine about what kind of support or what options there are for international students. You know, obviously that's a very distinct position to be in, and so whether it's, you know, community support in the residence halls or different living options, or whether it's certain dining options and support with the menu that way, that can look a lot different than it would for a domestic student. So I'd love to hear from you guys about that.
Go ahead, Doug.
Okay. So we have, as far as like the communities and the residence halls go, we have what we call community kitchens in all of our residence halls, and so it's a space mostly in like the lobby areas where it's a fully functioning kitchen in all of our residence halls that students can go down and cook their own food. So if you are really missing that home cooked meal that you want every once in a while and you want to make that for yourself, you have the ability to do that in that community kitchen down there. We also have our Office of Global Programs has specifically some staff members in there that are dedicated to our international students, and so they offer opportunities to take them out into Columbus to some international markets to pick up the ingredients that they need to make those meals if they are looking to make it themselves. I will say our dining services team does an awesome job at trying to do a variety of different type meals that would accommodate those palates, and have gone above and beyond to really meet those needs in my experience.
Yeah, and one thing we did last year, which was really fun, is first of all, we work with a lot of different cultural groups on campus. If we do a special station or a different menu for a week, we'll work closely with the students and we'll try to find out what their favorite dishes were growing up, what the true authentic ingredients are. We source the true authentic ingredients. We make sure that the menus are written properly. It's really been fun. Last year we actually had cooking classes, cultural cooking classes, where we had students come in and we did them for 3 days, each cooking class at Curtis, and we set up 8 tables, and each of the tables was surrounded by 5 or 6 students, and students actually taught the cultural cooking classes and taught how to cook some of their favorite cuisines that they ate growing up. And it was a really great experience for the students themselves. We had, I think, like the very first one, we had 6 students sign up, and we ended up having over 40 students joining in throughout that first cooking class. And it was a lot of fun, but we all learned a lot from each other during these classes, and also the importance of the authenticity of the food, and to make sure that, you know, we're doing it the right way and we're sourcing the right ingredients. But the cooking classes we'll continue to do this year. That was probably one of the highlights of our year last year when it came to the different types of cultural cuisine.
I definitely could have used that before I graduated, Paul. There's a couple really easy questions that I want to get to, and then I want to get some parting words from everyone because we're just about out of time. So really quickly, Paul, are there halal foods available on campus?
There are. Actually, we worked with some students last year to begin once a week at Huffman, which is where a lot of our upperclassmen eat every night, and a lot of the athletes eat every night. Once a week, we actually do in a halal station. We worked with students on campus to develop those menus and to develop, the different dishes. So we make sure that we source that food properly. We also have different types of halal food available at both Slater and at Huffman. We just talk with the students and work to get them exactly which foods they need, depending on what their dietary needs are.
Great. Yeah, and I know we just had a meeting with the international counselors earlier today, and they were talking about Denison's location being an asset for international students as well, because Granville obviously isn't a mecca of international food. I mean, Dragon Village is what it is. It's fine for Chinese food, but it's not authentic by any means. But there are a lot of grocery store options for students if they feel like they do want to cook, you know, other types of food that maybe for whatever reason we're not offering on campus too. And we did have someone ask, as a follow-up question, Paul, you mentioned that there are no tree nuts in the cooking. Does that include peanuts as well?
It does. It does. The only peanuts that we have on campus are in our triple peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that are served at Slater, and it's a pre-packaged, we make them, but they're made in a safe environment, pre-packaged and sold. And then if somebody does want peanut butter, we only give it out in the pre-purchased cups.
Containers, yeah.
Yeah, the containers, yeah. It's not just sitting out with a knife for anybody to get. We found students like to put peanut butter on toast and put it on our toasters too. So that actually helped us by not having the peanut butter sitting out.
Great. Fantastic. Well, I do want to get parting words. I mean, if there's any message that you have for students that might be looking at Denison, what do you think sets Denison apart in terms of your department? We'll start with Doug.
So I would say if you are looking for a place to be your home away from home, a place that you want to spend your weeks and your weekends, because our students do not go home on the weekends, they all stay here, and there is a very vibrant social life here on campus. If you are looking to truly like spend your time here and engage in a community that makes you feel at home, welcome, and build long-lasting, even for some people, lifelong relationships, then I would recommend that you come here, because you're going to find that social residential experience that you're looking for. You have the students here that are also looking for it, and you also have the staff that are here to make that happen, plan those events. The dining halls are open late to support that. Like, it is truly, like, Denison is open 24/7, and we're happy to have you.
Great. Paul and Catherine?
My thoughts are there's no better place than to be home on the hill, and I want to commend Denison and Bon Appetit for all of their preparation and collaboration to allow our students to be here right now, and I'm very proud of that, and I commend you.
Paul, did you have anything to add?
No, just a 2-second story. I got a call from a freshman's father last week, and his son was having a hard time navigating the cafes, and I love those calls. I was able to reach out to his son, and we met the next morning down outside of Slater, and I got to spend an hour with him, learning about the food that he liked, also taking him to all the different cafes and explaining the hours and introducing him to all the chefs and managers. And it was definitely just one of the reasons that I love working at colleges, because I got to spend that special time with one of the students and make his day a little bit better, and it made my day better. So, and that's all.
That's all. No big deal. Christian, as a student, as a senior, what do you think makes the living and dining experience different at Denison? What makes it special? Why have you stayed for 4 years?
Honestly, I think that there's options for everyone. I say it from a student, from a very honest perspective. If you're nervous about residential life, if you're nervous about the food, I say trust the process, trust Denison. They will find a way to cater to your needs, and they will find a way to make you happy, because they have made me very happy.
And I think that, Christian, you're coming from a very distinct background, from Chicago, you know, from a diverse background to small little New Englandy Granville in the middle of Ohio, to have that kind of perspective, I think does say a lot about what Denison has to offer, you know, because that's not true for all of our peers. So it's good to hear that from an honest student perspective. So we are definitely out of time. I want to be respectful of all of our panelists here who, you know, we're all Zoom calling all day. So I definitely want to make sure and be respectful of your time. I know there's a few questions we didn't get to. I'm definitely going to answer those. So don't worry, we won't leave you behind. And I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, panelists and students. Thank you for making time in your night to come and join us. Denison does have a whole webinar series this fall, so definitely check it out and sign up for more of those. And we are open for visits, so if anyone wants to come, I don't know that it'll be quite the same as normal, but you can come and take a tour Monday through Friday and then on the weekends as well. So you can kind of feel at least some of that, you know, community vibe that we've been talking so much about. So thank you, students. Thank you, panelists. We really appreciate it, and I hope you all enjoy your fall.
Thank you all so much.